Okay.
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 So, hi.
Hi.
To start off with, would you like to just say your name and where you are?
My name is Natalie Haynes, and I'm in Milton, Ontario, outside of Toronto, Canada. Yeah.
Right. So the first big question is, who are you? Who are you as a human being, as a person? And that can be your passions, your qualities, your values, whatever you'd like.
I don't get asked that question often. Well, see, who am I? I'm stumped right now. I'm gonna start with like where I am. I'm at home, so I'm a mother, a wife, a mother of two. Um, the three of them are downstairs, and we just got a puppy who's brand new. So I feel very motherly lately because I'm at home with everyone all the time. I'm a Gestalt therapist, and that is a passion of mine for sure. I'm a sister and a daughter, and I think right now I'm like lately, this past summer with COVID, I was really enjoying seeing people outside, really enjoying being a friend and just like connecting with people. And lately, since September has hit, I would say in the past little while, I'm really enjoying just almost like I feel like I'm turning in, like I need to be more with myself and my surroundings and that sort of thing. It might be that we also got a puppy because that's necessary. Yeah.
That draws people in. It also may be
Yeah.
that it's winter in Canada. It's like what, mid-October? That's almost winter.
Not really. It's been really nice out actually.
Nice.
Alberta got snow. We didn't get any. Yeah, Alberta got a lot of snow. We had a beautiful weekend on the weekend. So yeah, it's still nice out. It's chilly, but nice. Yeah. I'm trying to think
But
of
the
what
part
else
about
about me.
yourself, yeah, I'm wondering, sometimes this is an interesting sort of prompt, is would you say that there's a value that you organize yourself around in some way?
Hmm. I I think, give me an example. Like what do you mean?
And some people are just fueled by sense of justice, and that's like their work, their being, their protest, their activism, those kinds of things. Some people,
Mhm.
honesty. There's been a whole variety of different sort of axes that people spin around.
Mm. I think one of the things that this is what popped into my mind, one of the things that I'm motivated by is um, like experiencing, meaning um, like experiencing, um, I notice it's what I do, and it's also sometimes the thing that keeps me like it can take on a life of its own, and it's a bit too much sometimes. But so for example, like I have my own practice, but I've started to do workshops and that sort of things for some companies, and I do a lot of volunteer work where I'm advocating for registered psychotherapists here in Ontario. Um, I'm on the board at the Gestalt Institute, and um, we just got a puppy, which is like a whole new experience. But you know, everyone was like, you got to make sure that you get the puppy if you really want the puppy. But I wanted to have a puppy in my life. Like I wanted to at least have a dog in my life once. I know my kids want it, but it's almost like all these different experiences are hard to say no to. So I orient myself around working towards experiencing different things, and like going to school. Like I'm part of Rella's developmental program right now, and part of that was because I wanted to go to New York, and I also wanted to experience like what, you know, what she was teaching in that way. I mean, she's come to Toronto, but you know, to go to experience that is like, so it's more around that. Margarita has her program in Italy, and I you know, I'm in my mind, that's like a future thing that I'd like to go and do. So it's I find that it's almost like, ooh, that gives me a little spark. I want to try that. I want to do that. I want to, yeah.
And
So
it's interesting. It sounds kind of like a process verb. It's like experiencing things, not like the end goal and the list of, you know, check marks.
yeah, it doesn't really end. I just keep adding things to the list.
Okay,
Yeah, I keep adding things
interesting.
to the list.
Okay, so another question would be, and this is, and these are all very gestalty questions, it's just whatever
Yeah,
pops to mind. But I'm
right.
interested in what comes up for you as an event or as a set of circumstances in your life that you would say has shaped somehow who you are.
Hmm. Um, I, well, I would say, I'm trying to think if that's the event that's coming to mind, but I'll start there. Um, I would say, you know, when I was growing up, I so when I was in grade 4, I was selected, myself and a couple of the students were selected to go to a school that was in a, um, I would say almost like it was a different school. I got selected to do French immersion, but it was in a completely different class of neighborhood.
Mm-hmm.
And so that I ended up being one of, probably I would say like 4 or 5 Black students in the school.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think I would say it was around then that I really started to question everything about me, and you know, and um, not who I was, but just not feeling like I was comfortable in my own skin at all. And that continued for a really long time, to the point where I saw my first therapist at 24, and she said to me, you would be, it was like when as soon as I started going, she was like, or she said, you know, you could be a therapist, because everything she talked about, I just love the metaphor, like creating metaphors around it and being able to see myself in a different way and experience myself in a different way and not feel like I was stuck
Mm-hmm.
anymore. And so she said, you would make a really great therapist. And I was like, you mean I could do this for a job? Like, because everything up until that point didn't really seem like it was, I don't know, like a thing, like a fulfilling thing.
Mm-hmm.
And like it was, I was doing it. I wasn't into it. I wasn't enjoying it. And so when she said that, I was like, oh, well, this could be something like just for me. And I would say it was probably about a year or so later, I had, um, it was like a number of serendipitous events where I essentially like ended up going to therapy school, and I worked the whole time and all that. But basically what I've said is that as soon as I found like the Gestalt Institute eventually, um, I was like, this is it. This is, I get this. Like I understand this. Like I finally feel like there's something that, you know, I really understand, and I didn't have that before. Um, so yeah, it's sort of become, it's a big part of me. It's, and like, you know, the aspect of like, this is like Gestalt therapy is like, it's, you know, it's about learning how to be human, and you know what you're experiencing and how you connect with others, and like it's given me so much more than just like how I work with clients. um so yeah, I would
I
say
just
that
don't
that
want to
event has been,
gloss over that you just said that, you know, from grade 4 or grade 5, that you were just fundamentally uncomfortable in yourself. That's
yeah.
really like a long time. to
Oh, it
feel
was a
that?
long time. Yeah. By the time I had decided to, by the time, yeah, for a really long time, for many reasons. For being in my skin color, um, to being, you know, in a different class, like economic
Socioeconomic,
class
yeah.
than, yeah, than most of the people I was in school with. Um, and like those factors had played such a role in how I saw myself and
Mm-hmm.
how I came to be.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I would say by the time I was 24, I was I don't even think I could, like I didn't know who I was. I didn't know, like I didn't know if what I was thinking was my own. It was like I couldn't pinpoint anything about me. You know,
Mm.
I was just like a big ball of thoughts, always trying to, you couldn't tell from the outside. I was really good at, you couldn't tell.
Hmm.
But inside I was yeah, I was just constantly thinking, constantly trying to, I don't know, be normal
Mm.
in my mind. And
Mm-hmm.
so when I started down that path, I was like, oh, you mean I'm not stuck? I don't have to be like this anymore. I don't, there's maybe a way through, or there's a different option.
Mm-hmm.
And so from there, from that one therapist, she died, and she was like, I'll teach you how to be a therapist. And yeah, and I,
Did she like set you on your way before she died,
well,
or was that very abrupt? That sounds really
it was,
jarring.
it was abrupt. It was
Oh.
abrupt. So then, I, at the time, I was working in a corporation,
Mm-hmm.
and I worked in the corporate world for a long time. And somebody I worked with said, "Oh, you should try this school." And the school was called the Transformational Arts College. And from there, I studied with like under, well, Michelle DeRoche, who's also a Gestalt therapist,
Mm-hmm.
and she was. I did a group therapy group with her for about 2 years. And I would say that was probably one of the biggest changes that I saw in myself, partly because while I was in that group therapy group with her, and in the second year of that group, while she was running it, she was at the Gestalt Institute, and she changed our group from just a group therapy group to a Gestalt therapy group.
Mm.
And I tell people my learning about myself went from like it was here to like
Mm-hmm.
to this.
Ah.
And one of the biggest things I remember, and there was a man named Paul, and he was her supervisor, and he would come in and do the classes. And he would say, I think one of the first things that he said was, is you're talking too much. You're all talking too much. So say whatever you need to say, and then say period. So and just the ability to be able to say something, and just to say, I don't know, I feel this,
Full
and then
stop.
to feel it
Mm-hmm.
was a completely different experience.
Mm.
And so I'm going to tell this other story, because this is the reason why, this is the other reason why, the other reason why I signed up at the Gestalt Institute. So
Mm-hmm.
Michelle changed the group to a Gestalt therapy group. But at the time, Michelle was my teacher also. And we had, there was one weekend where we were at TAC, and we were running the weekend was about just learning about like working with the topic of sexuality, and that kind of thing. Anyway, there was a woman who was in the session who was just really, she was really, in my opinion, she had a lot of negative comments about everything, and it was uncomfortable. I remember
Okay.
feeling so uncomfortable at all the comments that she was making about and Michelle was just trying to like show a vast, like sexuality has so many different, like, you know, experiences, and you know, there's so many avenues anyway. So we're looking at all these things, but this woman was really something else. And so another woman who was in the class, she was basically redoing the weekend because she had missed it in her year.
Mm-hmm.
I'd never seen her before. And so all of a sudden she sat up in the class, and she looked over at this woman who was being at the time I was like, oh, please stop. She was like, I felt like but she looked over at this woman and she said, I feel really offended by you right now. And then she just sat back and she sat. She just sat back. And so she said it in front of this whole class.
Mm-hmm.
And I was I was like, oh my gosh, who says that?
What just
So I went,
happened?
oh, what just happened? How do you say that to somebody and you don't even look fazed by it at all? And so I went over to her and I said, like at the break, and I said, what are you doing for lunch? Like, let's go for lunch. So we went for lunch. And she was going to the Gestalt, she was going to the Gestalt Institute of Toronto. I'm like, I've heard so much about this place. Our group has been changed to a Gestalt therapy group. I've never seen somebody say something like that to someone and be okay with it. I would have been a shaking mess because I would have been, anyway. So after that I said, you know what, I'm going to do this, and I will say that, you know, all of these events, I've learned about myself from the inside out.
Mm-hmm.
That I've learned about Gestalt therapy through like learning about myself. And so it just gave me an avenue to know myself in a different way, in even in the sensing, you
Mm-hmm.
know. And that's been the biggest change for me, because for so long I was so unsure of everything. And I think Gestalt gave me the ability to be sure, or at least to know what I know in a moment, you know. Yeah. So that, I would say that's a long answer to your question, but
Yeah, no, that's fine. It sounds like it really kind of put some things together for you, those experiences.
yeah.
Okay, and I'll come back to some more of the Gestalty stuff later. But I have one more question. You know, you've mentioned a couple people already. I'm wondering, maybe it's them, maybe it's someone else, but who comes to mind as a person who's really had a strong influence in your life? And it can be, you know, from personal or professional life.
Well, I would say the person who's coming to mind for me, personal and professional. I have lots. You know, right. The person who's coming to mind right now is Chopinskaya. So she's been a teacher and like a mentor to me since I started the program. I started at the Gestalt Institute in Toronto, and she is, I don't know, she's like a firecracker, and and I don't know, I just love the way that she has always, like, just her passion for Gestalt and her passion for learning and continuing to learn and being curious. Like, I've seen her change so much in the past, like, I don't even know how many, like the past few years, as a Gestalt has becomes more relational, and, you know, and, but I will say that when I'm with Jay, she holds a vision, like she sees something in me, that she sees the way she sees me. It has always made me strive for that, whatever that is. I don't know. It's like, you know, it's like she sees something. I've always felt that. I will also say, from a therapy perspective, my beginnings was with Michelle DeRoche. And so she had a huge impact on me as well. And then personally, I have, make me cry. A friend of mine, one of my best friends, died when she was 39, about to be 40. And yeah, so that was about 6 years now. We're going almost 7. And she, again, somebody who saw the parts of me that um, I didn't always show. And so just, people who helped me to bring down the way in which I tried to connect, which was always so fabricated. It was always so a little bit too. It was like I didn't have to try so hard, and I could just be myself and be, just yeah. So
yeah, that's a lot. I mean, being enough, being seen, and then having somebody see, potential in parts of yourself, that's beautiful.
mm-hmm.
It's really
Yeah,
nice.
yeah.
I'm sorry about your friend and your
Thanks.
therapist. That's a lot.
Yeah, there's been a lot. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, people die, but every once in a while, it's just, that's a lot of
I
people
know.
for me for now.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. It's true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this next question is probably one of the more personal ones, and not everyone has something to say about it.
Mm-hmm.
But it's about how you would say you experience yourself within your gender, if that's a way that you understand yourself or define yourself at all. If there's anything you'd like to say to that.
How do I define myself within my gender?
Not so much defining, but experiencing. Like
Oh,
as
how
a
do I experience it?
woman or in your femininity or in, I say gender because I don't want to make assumptions about anybody.
Oh, yeah. In my femininity, I don't know. I've never been asked that question before.
I ask weird questions.
um, uh, what's coming to mind, I just don't know how to put it into words. There was once there's something very powerful about, this is going to sound so weird, but like the sexual energy of like a feminine sexual energy.
Mm-hmm.
And so the reason why I say that is because I, I, I feel it sometimes. I don't always. Most of the time, I feel like I'm just running from one thing to another with like dogs and kids and, work and whatever. I don't always
Yeah,
feel
that's
that.
yeah.
Yeah. But I do, if I'm like out with friends and we're dancing, or if we're at a party, which is not something that's happened lately unless it's been something that's been outside. But there's something about like um being able to express myself that way. I don't know if I'm putting this all, if this is making sense, but
Yeah, no,
um
it does sound like it's making sense. It sounds kind of like a deeper layer that's kind of there.
yeah.
Not it doesn't sound like you're walking around being sexual all the time. I think I
No, it's
understand it
not.
more as
Yeah.
something that is kind of
It
a
gets
deeper.
evoked. Yeah, it
Mm-hmm,
gets evoked in time at times,
mm-hmm.
So if
It
I'm
sounds like
like,
a very essential kind of part of
it's
your
like an
feminine
essential part.
experience.
Yeah. It's like something that, it's interesting. I had a class. We're doing a class at the institute, and um, Tony Greco was our teacher at the time, and we were just trying on different energies, and so within my class they said try on the sexual energy, like lead with that. And so I walked in how I would normally walk in most places, which is like just barreling in. And they said, now walk in with this, using your sexual energy. So I'd walk in like if I was like, I don't know, I was in my body more. And I
Mm-hmm,
say dancing because when I'm dancing, I feel like I'm in my body, whether it's dancing with my friends or dancing with, a party or whatever, like nothing. But I just feel my body more, I
mm-hmm.
can experience it more. So I walk in, and the response that people said was, "Oh, like, I believe you." Like, I, you know, I can feel you as your strength in
Mm-hmm.
that. And it was like, oh, like, what am I usually like? I wonder what I'm usually exuding. It's like, it was a different response, but that
Mm-hmm.
response of like, if I walk it, when I walk in this way, there's almost like, the impact was, I was present, I was there, I was, you know, so that was actually really interesting to me, and it just makes me wonder why I don't always do that. It's like sometimes I feel like hiding. Yeah. So that's how I would experience it. That's when it's most present for me. And we'll just continue.
Okay. So thank you for that. That is actually very understandable what you're saying. I did,
Hmm.
yeah, and I appreciate that.
Yeah.
So the next question you've kind of touched on a bit, which is how you came into Gestalt. But I wonder if there's a specific way that you would explain how Gestalt has affected you as a person.
Mm, um, I would say, so yeah, I did touch on that a little bit when I said, like, it's almost like you know yourself from the inside out. But I think
Mm-hmm.
one of the things that I've learned through Gestalt is, um, like, the ability to put words to the sense, the what you're sensing,
Mm-hmm.
like, Ruella, she'll call, like, that kinesthetic resonance, like
Mm-hmm.
or it's like the what you're experiencing. um Before I did therapy, it was like I felt like I was just a fog of stuff. Like, I just didn't know what this was, you know, what I was experiencing, what was happening in me. And I would say that with Gestalt, it's like you have a small sensation of something, and it tells me something about now, or it tells me something about what I'm experiencing with you.
Mm-hmm.
uh, um, it tells me what I might be experiencing, you know, like, just by saying something, just by telling a story,
Mm-hmm.
like, what is that, like, what was it like for me to talk about me dancing on this thing? Like, I was feeling a whole bunch of things. There was a part of me that was like, ooh, and there was a part of me that, by the time I got to when I was, the end of my story, I was like, oh no, actually, yeah, I'm reminded about how important that is for me and how much I miss it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, how much that's actually a part of me. And
Mm-hmm.
so I love Gestalt for, like, the ability to know myself
Mm-hmm.
in even just in how I'm, in how I might be telling a story. It's like another layer of knowing.
It's interesting
And
because you said right now, you said something about having language for this. And it's true. I mean,
yeah.
people think Gestalt is very embodied, and it is, but it's also a cognitive and it's an educational process. I mean, we learn to
Hmm.
name what's happening as we understand it.
Hmm. But you have to, like, it's
So
like
that's part of
knowing
the
the body.
awareness. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Like,
It's
so.
there, but we also have to become aware of it. And language is
Hmm.
a big part of that. Okay.
Right. Yeah.
Interesting. Okay, so you've talked a little bit about, you do this in the Gestalt Institute and you're on the board and things like that. But what would you say is your thing in Gestalt? What is it that you love doing? What is your sort of your area or your practice built around?
Mm. um I we gotta I would say, I was thinking of a time. My son, hold on a second. Yeah. And not very long. I don't know how many minutes. I'm on a call. Okay. I'll close the door. Or you come in. It's fine. Yeah, you can stay in. So, we were taught, it was a question that we got asked in one of our classes. And it was just about, you know, how we would experience, like, you know, almost like what kind of therapy we are what kind of therapist we are we? Or it's more like how do we do this? Anyway, my point is that I remember, and I I think I love to talk about Gestalt through my experience, through my stories, through like it's almost like that's how I've come to know it. So like you might say something and then I'm reminded of something within me, or I'm reminded of like of experience which is associated to a feeling. I don't always know where it's going to go. You know, I don't like, I always like, I may have a thought of a story or something, and I just go with it and see, and maybe feel what I experience, and stay there. So I think, is that answering your question?
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
it's kind of a how you do it. And some people
How I
have
do it.
a very specific what they do. Like, you know, I work in this area or with this community, but
Wow.
it's whatever that is for you, that's fine.
Well, I work in, yeah. So that's kind of what I do when I'm, you know, if I'm working with clients. But with clients, whether it's like anxiety or, hold on a second, she's got to go out. Yeah, go take her pee. With working with anxiety, depression, like all kinds of things. Couples therapy. I do a lot of that stuff too. So yeah,
Okay.
it's like that's a bunch of different things all sort of mashed together in your question.
Yeah, no, but that's fine. I mean, and some people are really defined and some people are really broad, and I'm just curious, you know, like what are you doing and how are you doing it? So that's
Yeah,
fine.
yeah.
And another question is, what would you say that you've run up to as a challenge, either within Gestalt or as a person, however you'd like to answer it at this point? But what would you say has been a significant challenge in your life?
In my life, um, hmm,
I mean, your therapy life or your person life? Some people choose one or another. So.
um, hmm. I would say a significant challenge that I've um, worked through and still is, as I left the corporate world after like 15 years, and then I started my practice. Like I jumped from one career to another. And at the time when I was studying, so I went to TAC, I graduated from there, and then I went to the Gestalt Institute. And I went to the Gestalt Institute while I was working and I had two babies. And it was like I was going to school, I started my practice, I was pregnant. Like it was a lot of things. Like actually this little guy
That's
here,
very intense.
it was intense. I was determined to finish it, you know, before they got too big. So my third year I was pregnant. Yeah, third year I was pregnant with Carson. And he was born on December the 23rd. And I had him back in class 3 weeks later. Like,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. So it was just, and he was part of the class, and he came to our retreat at the end of the year. And yeah, yeah. So that was a big challenge. And it just basically balancing, trying
Mm-hmm.
to balance what is not balanceable, or
Yeah, and while making a huge jump, like that's a big lifestyle switch
it was a
from the
big
corporate world
lifestyle.
to the Gestalt world. So
Yeah, it was a big
good.
lifestyle. Yeah.
Okay. And
hmm
what comes up on the other side of that as some of your peak moments or a particular highlight in your experience? That can be as a client, as a therapist, as a student, as a human being, you know. What would you say is one of those really memorable moments that you've had?
There was, I would say that, I don't know, there's been so many. I've, I feel like leaving the corporate world is like, when I was working, I really enjoyed what I did. I loved who I worked with. I loved the company I worked with, but it wasn't my thing. Like, it wasn't for me. So me leaving the corporate world and, becoming a therapist, but becoming a Gestalt therapist added like a different layer of, you know, it's just given me the ability to do so many different kinds of creative things, whether it's doing speaking engagements. I'm doing some diversity and inclusion training for a company here in Toronto, and um, I'm doing a workshop for like conference workshops, that kind of thing. Um, I'm doing a lot of work around getting our registered psychotherapists covered under insurance, so that they could be covered, through their insurance benefits through work. Like, I've just had the ability to do like a lot of different things, and just be able to be creative. And so
I think I'm seeing
yeah,
what you were saying about going for, the experience and then the other experience. Yeah.
yeah, like there's like so there's just this there's the ability to actually try, like, to do different things. So I'm not just seeing clients all the time, which I love.
Mm-hmm.
um and but I also like, the ability to participate on the board. And
Mm-hmm.
I was a co-leader at one of our retreats, which was like, that was a highlight for me, that I was one of 4 people in the class who were selected.
Mm-hmm.
And like, that was amazing. So I've just had to, like, I've had, like, I don't know, it's just amazing experiences where I've felt, I think I've got to feel different things than just sitting at my desk, my old life.
Nice. Nice.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I think that the last question that I really have is, well, you've been mentioning Toronto quite a bit, so I guess I will ask you this. Do you feel like you're part of a Gestalt community? Like, does that mean something to you, that phrase?
Absolutely. Yes.
What is your experience of that? Is that
They're
local,
my
institutional, or is it more than that for you?
It's the graduates of the Gestalt Institute of Toronto.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, those are my peeps. Like, I mean, the people who I'm connected with, right? Like, so
Mm-hmm.
if there's a workshop, I'm excited because I'm going to see these, people who I know I will connect with. I know
Mm-hmm.
we just, we can connect in a specific, or in a just differently than you might with
Mm-hmm.
other people.
Yeah.
I don't want to say that, sounds weird when I say it, but we've been through an experience, and we've been through an experience together, or whether it's been through, continuing education workshops. But, so we have, yeah, we just know each other in that way. So
Mm-hmm.
I would say the best thing that I would say about this is that if I was ever with some people from the Institute, there's a safety that I feel with them, because I know that if there was anything that needed to be said, or not, like, we could have that conversation. We could connect in that way.
Mm-hmm.
And that feels safe for me.
Mm.
It's not that I don't feel safe with other people, but I just,
Right.
yeah,
Yep.
just a different
Nice.
level of connection. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Hmm.
Okay. Well, I'm glad
Yeah.
I asked. And
Yeah.
the last question is really where you see either yourself and or I guess Gestalt going in the future. Do you have any immediate plans or do you see any major opportunities there?
Well, I'm doing right now. I'm doing some uh, like a like I was saying, some training, but I'm
Mm-hmm.
doing it through a Gestalt lens, so on diversity and inclusion. And I'm kind of
Yeah,
hoping
Gestalt definitely needs to grow that way quite a bit.
yeah, Gestalt definitely needs to grow that way quite a bit. Um, and I always say this. I always think Gestalt doesn't have great marketing. Like, I think the institute in Toronto, I'm going to say they've been doing a lot of stuff. They're really, like, the school's doing really well, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
But I think Gestalt overall people don't know about it. They don't, and I
Yeah.
feel like my son has got the dog, like he's got, he's like, anyway, I feel like it's a wonderful secret I found out about, and so it, people know about some different therapies and stuff, but when you say Gestalt, they're like, what's that? I'm like, oh, I wish that, there was something that could make it more well known or whatever, because it's
definitely we should have done like a major market study before we started branding things as Gestalt. This would not have been its official name if we'd tested that out.
Carson, is she? Oh, he's got the dog walking on her hands, and she doesn't look like she's upset by it. So I got a little worried. Yeah. Anyway, sorry. Yeah,
that's all right.
So from a marketing perspective, yes. Like I think
some work to do.
There's some work to do. Yeah. Because I think once people get a taste of it or understand it, then they see it's different. It's different.
It is.
So.
Yeah. And did you want to say anything more about the diversity and inclusion work? I feel like I kind of cut you off there.
Well, I took were you at the conference?
Yep. I was co-convener, the Toronto conference.
Okay, yeah, okay. Yes, that's right.
Yes.
Where I saw your name.
Yeah.
So Deborah Plummer did her talk. And so she had, so she also came to Toronto and she did a 2-day workshop. So anyway, she was quite generous in that workshop. Plus, like when I had decided to do, I'd been asked to do a workshop for this company, and she was just quite generous in terms of like, yes, use my framework and blah blah blah. And so I've been just sort of, I've taken that, and essentially it's, I'm looking at this as a way to help people to have the conversation, have whatever conversations that they need, because I feel like that's where things get stopped. So people can learn a lot about, we can learn about diversity and inclusion and terms and all of those things, but then what? You know what I mean? Like, then what? How do we have this? How do we meet together? How do we converse together? How do we, what happens?
Just knocking your plant over. Sorry.
Sorry. Hi.
I promise I'll get her back in a second.
Yeah, no.
She's like, oh, again.
Okay.
This is how deforestation happens. The puppies knock the trees down.
That is not even a real tree. Oh, you. So, yeah. So it's
helping us have these conversations.
It's helping people to have connection, and what gets in the way of having connection. And so, and how do you deal with all of the, like, the shame and the fear and the anxiety around connecting around these topics that are so difficult to talk about? But that's one of the things about Gestalt. It's like, how do we be with difference? How do you be with difference? So Deborah Plummer said in our workshop, she said, I really feel like Gestalt is the way through when it comes to diversity and inclusion. And when she said that, and when I thought about it, I was like, she's right. She's right, because it's like, you can be you and I'm going to be me, and we're different and we may not always agree, but how can we be together in this space? And I think that comes up a lot around this. So I think it's anyway, so I love that slant to it. And I feel like it just brings, like, if people are trying to create culture or, a workplace culture or something like that, and have a team that actually can have conversations, what a wonderful thing that would be. So anyway, so it's this workshop I'm doing is going really well. I'm excited about it, and so that's wonderful. Yeah.
Well, thank you. Is there anything else that you feel like you'd like to add, or should I just let you get back to your family and your puppy and everything else?
No, this has been really nice.
Mhm.
Yeah, I don't think so. I don't think so. No, but thank
Right.
you.
Well, thank you very much for your time. I've really appreciated this. So
Yes,
we'll leave it
yes.
here for now.